today's meeting for data, AI, and ethics. As I mentioned earlier, we have a couple of invited speakers, and today we are starting with the talk of Dr. Cihangir Tezcan, who is connecting from Ankara, as far as I know. And to introduce our speaker, let me just give a brief overview about him. Recently, he is working as Associate Professor Doctor at the Department of Cybersecurity at Informatics Institute under the umbrella of Middle East Technical University. And previously, he graduated from mathematics in 2007. Please correct me, by the way, if I say something wrong. And afterwards, he got his Master of Science at 2009 and from Institute of Applied Mathematics at Cryptography degree program. And as far as I remember, he got PhD degree from the same degree as well. It's my pleasure, to be honest, to introduce Cihangir Tezcan with you. So we will see a talk entitled by Big Trouble in Big Data. Please, Cihangir Hocam, stage is yours.
Thank you very much. So thank you for the introduction. I'm currently the head of Department of Cybersecurity at Informatics Institute in Middle East Technical University. So today I will talk about some of our concerns about artificial intelligence actually. So we use artificial intelligence a lot, and it is a fantastic tool. It helps us a lot, but the problem is that there may be some problems that we are overlooking. So I'm not against artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithms or deep learning algorithms at all, but I just want to inform that there might be some things that we should be concerned about. So just assume that we all love artificial intelligence, and now I'm going to talk about negative things, so you might think that I'm against it, but actually it's not. Just I want you to know how this artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithms on the big data can cause some big troubles. Okay, so let's start. So I want to first talk about some misconceptions. So be careful what you share, because sharing a picture of you with your friends might contain location, tag people, biometric data like facial features, even fingerprints. In some cases, if you have a high quality photo from the picture, we can capture your fingerprints. We can also, learn your habits and so on and so forth. So, of course, this is something everybody knows. So if you share something like this kind of data can leak. And some people think that if I do not share any personal information, nobody can get any crucial information about me. So this is one of the biggest misconceptions, because also people think that when you share something and your personal information leaks, they think that my data is only used for showing me targeted advertisements. So these two misconceptions actually allow people to share a lot of information about themselves, and actually this is not the case. So this talk is mostly about these things. So I will talk more on that, but let me talk about this first part. Even if you don't share anything, but if you use social media, for instance, we know who your friends are, and you are actually the average of your friends, for instance, in terms of politics or religion and so on. So even if you don't share anything, from your friends, we can actually learn a lot about you. And sometimes we will actually reach to some wrong results about you, but this is actually what this talk about, because some artificial intelligence actually result in false alarms which might harm you in some way. So let me just briefly mention what can go wrong. For instance, think that you are sharing a picture of a food. Okay, you might think that, okay, I'm not taking the I'm not tagging the location of the place. So you are simply sharing a picture of a food. So you think that no information about you leaks. But the problem is that an Instagram user might be labeled as happy for posting food pictures. However, you might be labeled as jealous for posting food pictures also, because it depends on the artificial intelligence algorithm. And this might be true. Maybe you post those pictures just after you see other people sharing happy moments. So maybe you were jealous of them. So such a pattern is very hard to be detected by humans. But that is where the artificial intelligence comes into play, because AI or ML algorithms can easily detect such patterns. So sometimes maybe you just think that somebody is sharing just a food picture, but artificial intelligence can label you. And actually, this is what most machine learning algorithms are good for. They can actually categorize you. So, and you might think that, okay, they think that I'm happy or jealous, whatever, but actually it can cause some problems. So before moving on, let's talk about big data. Some thesis students, just take the definition from Wikipedia, so I wanted to do the same thing. So big data is a field that treats ways to analyze, systematically extract information from, or otherwise deal with data sets that are too large or complex to be dealt with by traditional data processing application software. So actually the name sometimes misleading, because when I heard it, I thought that maybe they are talking about, data that is larger than 4 gigabytes, because in 32-bit systems, you cannot have more than 4 gigabyte files or 4 gigabyte memory RAMs. So, but actually by big data, we are talking about collective information. Just think about every tweet that is posted until now. That is big data, and it is not easy to process them by basic software. But this is where artificial intelligence and machine learning comes into play. So AI, ML actually used for pattern recognition and then scoring, and this is where actually some problems will occur. So artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques can be used on big data to obtain patterns that are impossible to detect by human inspection. Maybe not impossible, but let's say improbable. And they can be used on big data to categorize data owners and to score data owners. And this is where the problem rises, because we actually have a lot of AI ML scores. Even if you have an Instagram, Facebook, or any social media account, actually that software gives you a score. And depending on that score, actually the software acts differently. Depending on that score, for instance, the suggestions for you, like the people you might know, changes and so on. Okay, so we talk about big data. Now the problem is that big data means big data leak, because some people think that if I have a social media account, but if I use it in a private mode, only my friends will know will see the things that I share and know what I publish there. But the problem is that your data has breached many times. And there's a very great website about it. I like it a lot. You can visit this webpage. There is a timeline on the webpage. You can see the biggest data. The bigger the bubble is, the bigger the number of accounts that were leaked. And if the bubble is in a yellow color or in a similar color, this means that there is an interesting story about this data leak. So you can click on it and listen to the story. So as you can see, your data leaked many, many times in the past. So everything you shared actually are known by other people. Also, when you buy an advertisement, they also know it. But anyway, a lot of people already have your data. And now they can work on this data. And sometimes they may do some errors. That is one of the problems. So let's talk about privacy. When we talk about security, in Europe or in United States, we also talk about privacy. But this is, I think, a little bit a cultural thing, because in Turkey, when we talk about security, we only talk about security. Nobody is interested about privacy. As long as your password or credit card information was not stolen, people don't care about their privacy or anything, other things that leak. But even if you try to hide, it is very easy to gather information about your race, gender, age, sexual orientation, political view, religion, ethnicity, etc. So even if you never shared anything about these topics, your friends actually share some stuff. So from your friends, we can actually know this info about you. Your actions and behavior can also leak this info about your contacts. These and many other info can allow AI and ML algorithms to perform profiling. And this is a very huge problem because, I mean, knowing the religion of everybody in a town might be a problem depending on the, geography or the sexual orientation. So you can be categorized as happy, depressed, suicidal, newlywed, drug addict, Muslim, homosexual, whatever. They can easily categorize you. So, and this is even if you don't share any info about them. But there would always be false positives, and this talk is about these false positives. From this profiling, you will have your AI ML scores like a credit score. These scores might affect the decision when you apply for a job or apply for a visa or do something else. So this is where the problem lies. If there is a false positive, and if you have a low score, although you should have something high, then you may have some negative effects without knowing them. So this is where my concern lies. Okay. So what is the difference between the credit score and an AI score? Credit scores are based on your economy, not on unrelated topics. So this is one of the problems. AI scores actually might be calculating on many unrelated topics. Credit scores are relatively transparent because you know how you get that score. You know how to improve your score. Like they tell you that if you reduce your debt, pay your bills on time, and so on, you will have a higher credit score. So credit scoring industry is regulated. Currently, we don't have regulations. I will talk about this a little bit more because I think yesterday, European Union had an Artificial Intelligence Act that was approved. It was like more than 200 pages of a document. It is something very new. So this is actually a hot topic, but we will see how it will be transformed in the future. And in the credit score, your errors can be corrected because if there's an error, you can know where it comes from and you can contact the authorities and correct your credit score. For instance, let me give you an example here. There's a very nice book by Cathy O'Neill, Weapons of Mass Destruction. So a Mississippi resident named Patricia Armour tried for 2 years to get Expedient to expunge from her file a $40,000 debt she no longer owed. It took a call to Mississippi's Attorney General, she told the New York Times, before Expedient corrected her records. So as you can see, this correcting a mistake is a very hard thing. So in the AI scores, you don't even know what your score is. So you don't know how it is calculated, and you don't know if there's an error there. So just think about how you can correct such a mistake. So let me give another example about correcting AI scores. This is also an example from the same book. So Catherine Taylor missed out on a job at the local Red Cross. Her background report included a criminal charge for the intent to manufacture and sell methamphetamine. So, if you sell drugs, so of course your job application to Red Cross will be rejected, right? The problem is that she didn't know this. And actually, this criminal charge is not about her. She discovered that the criminal charges belonged to another Catherine Taylor, who happened to be born on the same day. So in today's world, this is a huge problem. If there's somebody that has the same name with you, and if they also born on the same day, then this is a very huge problem. Okay, so I will talk more about this. The information was provided by Tenant Tracker, a data broker. So she didn't know this, but from this Tenant Tracker, she learned that there was a criminal charge about her. So this data broker realized that the data was riddled with errors and blended identities. It linked Taylor with the possible allies of Chantal Taylor, a convicted felon who happened to be born on the same day. And federal housing assistance employee read in the file that the Illinois thief had a tattoo on her ankle with the name Troy. After checking Catherine Taylor's ankle, she drew a line through that fellow's name. So in order to correct the mistake, you have to show them that there was no tattoo on your ankle. Try to imagine correcting such a mistake occurring in big data. Okay, so this is a very, very huge problem. You don't know if these mistakes actually affects you. All right. So an example about missing out on a job. So I'm not sure if I have the similar slides in the future, so let me give the examples now. So all of this stuff actually happened when some people in the United States applied for a credit and when they rejected. And so in some states, you cannot directly reject them. You have to explain why you rejected them. So for instance, in some visa applications, your visa gets rejected and they don't tell you why it was rejected, right? So this was similar in the credit applications, but in some states, the bank has to explain why they rejected you. So some people started to get documents saying that your application was good, but we rejected you anyway because people like you couldn't pay their credit debts. Okay, so here's the problem about the term people like you. So it turned out that a lot of people, black people, got rejected when they apply for a credit, and white people with similar files got accepted for the credit. So people try to find why our machine learning algorithms act in a racist way. And it turned out that sometimes there can be mistakes about how you design these algorithms, but in that case, it turned out that the algorithm was correct. So there was no intentional errors. And when you apply, actually, it is illegal to ask your race. So those applicants never said that they were white or black. But the problem is that the data you are using, actually, all of the credits data that was used in the United States. But the problem is that the wealth is not distributed among the races. So if you're a black person, you live in a neighborhood, maybe there are other black people. So when you apply for a credit, you write where you live. So depending on your address, this is why you got rejected. So if you move on to the next street, then your application will be accepted. This means that the data that you used for training is actually biased. So this is a very, very huge problem. You have to prove that the data you are using is not biased. So this is why we need actual regulations. And this is why European Union actually trying to have an act that will be used with GDPR. Okay. So let me move on about something. So I talked a little bit about actually the main idea, but now let's talk about what people know about you. So you can always buy Instagram or Facebook ads. So this is a very nice project I like. So people from Signal actually did that. So they wanted to show you that technology is not built for you, but it is built for your data. Also, the very famous saying is that data is the new oil. So it is really expensive, actually, and it is very important. So Facebook collects everything about you from Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp to sell visibility into people and their lives. Okay. Advertisers buy access to your personal data. Of course, when you buy this kind of data, actually, it is some kind of an anonymous way. Okay, it doesn't directly write my name instead of my name or a national ID number. They just write a very huge identifier, a huge number. But when I connect to my Facebook account or an Instagram, they know that who I am. So actually, these things does not work in an anonymous way, unfortunately. So in May 2021, people at Signal bought some Instagram ads. As advertisements, they showed the user's personal data back to them. So it was fantastic because when you buy the data, for instance, you can write if statements in your advertisement, because if the person is male, you might want to give a different picture to them and as an advertisement. If they're female, then maybe you would write something else on the advertisements. So depending on the data, you can show them something else. But what Signal did was that look at the data and print it on the screen back to the users. So, but this kind of transparency got them banned. So let me give you some examples from those Signal project. So just assume that you are an Instagram user, you just logged into your account. As an advertisement, you see this. And it says that you got this ad because you are a K-pop loving chemical engineer. This ad used your location to see you are in Berlin and you have a new baby and just moved and you are really feeling those pregnancy exercises lately. So this is the thing. These are the things that the advertiser know about you. As you can see, they know where you live, what you're interested in, and so on. So here's another example. You got this ad because you're a newlywed Pilates instructor and you are cartoon crazy. This ad used your location to see you are in La Jolla. You are into parenting blogs and thinking about LGBTQ adoption. So there are many examples. If you're interested, just please follow the link. I really love this experiment. But the thing is that when people realize that these are correct things about them, so they actually complained, and actually Facebook disabled this account, this advertisement account. So as you can see, Facebook doesn't want to see what they know about you, right? So what kind of problems you can have if everything about you is known by these people, and if they do profiling or scoring and score you in some way. So just think about an example where you apply for a job or a visa. So big companies receive thousands of applications for their job opening. So they cannot actually ask thousands of people to come to an interview, right? So instead, they actually have a broker company which is a specialist in AI ML. So they actually responsible for reducing this data. For instance, maybe 10,000 people applied for the job, but you will only have 100 for the interview, and maybe there are only just 5 openings. So this company actually reduces that 10,000 people to 100. So in order to do that, they will actually use this AI scores. They would order the applicants depending on their AI ML scores. So if there is a wrong scoring about you, you will never know. So maybe you applied for a job but didn't ask to have an interview with them. Maybe this might be the reason. Maybe your AI score is low somehow. So just think about this happening to you when you apply for a visa. So this actually leads us to the topic of AI explainability. You should be able to explain design choices of the system and rationale for deploying it. So this is very important. In many papers, in many theses, in academic writings, I see examples where the AI ML algorithm is unexplainable. So for instance, in cybersecurity, we have many examples where you try to detect malware. So you train your algorithm by giving some viruses first, then giving some other files which are secured, which don't have any viruses. So this way you train it, and then you give this algorithm a new file and ask if it contains a malware or not. So sometimes it says, it finds most of the time in a correct way, but you don't know why it says that the file is malware or not. And in false positives, you don't know why it says like that. So you cannot explain why it works, but with, I don't know, 92%, it works correctly. So you have to actually explain why it works. And for those, false positives or, non-detection cases, if you work on people's data, this kind of mistakes can affect people's lives. So let me give a few examples. In December 2021, the Dutch Data Protection Authority announced a fine of 2.75 million euros against the Dutch Tax and Customs Administration. It was based on a GDPR violation for processing the nationality of applicants by an ML algorithm in a discriminatory manner. And the thing was that the algorithm had identified double citizenship systematically as high risk, leading to marking claims by those individuals more likely as fraudulent. So if you are a Turkish person living in Europe, and if you have double citizenship, when you give your documents to the tax office, you might be considered as high risk just because you have double citizenship. So this is actually about AI explainability. So this is actually a wrong design choice. You have to show that your design choices are correct. You have to explain why you made those parameters or choices like that. Okay. So another topic is the AI fairness and bias. I actually talk about bias a little bit. So Fairness means that personal data needs to be handled in ways people would reasonably expect and not used in ways that have unjustified adverse effects on them. A practice will be considered unfair if it causes more harm than good. So it's a little bit hard to explain fairness in this way, but the idea is like this. So for the bias can be addressed prior to training the algorithm, during model training, and post-processing. So it is really important because in the example where I talk about credit applications, the bias was in the data. So it was prior to training the algorithm. But maybe you trained your algorithm in a non-biased data, but then during the model training or post-processing, maybe the data you receive might be biased. So it is unclear how to avoid bias in practice. So I don't know how the regulations will work on this. But again, in the future, we will see how it works out. So again, I already talked about this example, but let me read it again. So question is why some AI ML algorithms act racist or sexist. So many minorities credit application got rejected with a statement indicating that there was nothing wrong with their application, but it got rejected because people like them failed to pay their dues in the past. So it is the part where, we say people like them. So if two people with the same credit scores apply for a credit, the results might depend on if they are white or black. But it is illegal to ask race in applications. So the design choices are not racist, but then why the AI act racist? I already gave the answer in the beginning of this talk. Because AI uses location info and the wealth is not equally distributed among the black and white people, thus AI act racist because the data is biased. And this is prior to training. So there's nothing you can do to modify the algorithm and, correct it. The easiest thing you can do is to, remove the location info. This way it will be more fair and explainable, but this time a lot of people will get credit and a lot of, more people will fail to pay. So banks actually wouldn't like this. So this actually leads us to the ethical artificial intelligence and machine learning. So basic principles would be, these things. So we want all of these to be actually regulated. So privacy and data governance, accountability and auditability, robustness and security, transparency and explainability, fairness and non-discrimination, human oversight, promotion of human values. So these are not actually currently regulated. So this is why I'm really concerned about it. So general privacy principles is that collection limitation, this is actually the thing we always say about cybersecurity. Collect as minimum as you want. Companies would like to collect, or secrecy agencies always want to collect more. But collecting more means when a data leak occurs, a lot of data leaks. So collect as minimum as possible. So regulations will most probably will limit you in this phase. So data quality is another thing. You have to be sure that data belongs to the right person and the quality is good and so on. Otherwise, people with the same name as you causes problems to you. Purpose specification, this is actually considered in GDPR. When you collect data, you have to explain why you are collecting that data. Yes, use limitation, accountability, individual participation. So these principles can act as to, help us to process personal data. And to have a trustworthy artificial intelligence, this might be the roadmap. Combine law and ethics, identify and assess inherent risk, implement risk controls like ethics board, ethical checklists, trustworthy AI by design, measure and evaluate residual risk like impact assessment, auditing, certifications, put it into production, then monitor. So you have to actually use this in a circular way. You have to go back and check if something happens. So periodically you have to perform all of these steps one by one. So I actually gave some bad examples and what can go wrong. So question is to finish, what you can do. So be careful about your actions and what you share because they might really give a lot of information about you, but your actions also, affect your friends. So this is one of the problems. So your actions not only affect you, but they affect your friends. When in doubt, you can use cryptographic protocols for anonymity. This is important. So if an act of you might, if you think that an act will, might give some bad impressions about you, just use some cryptographic protocols, softwares or tools as an anonymity. And most importantly, try to reverse engineer artificial intelligence and increase your score. So this is important. So most of the time I told you that we don't know how these scores are calculated. And actually, I don't want to say this, but actually I have to. For instance, if you're a student right now at a university, most probably at your LinkedIn accounts, you also have your friends. So they're also currently students and looking for jobs. But if you want to increase your score, just don't connect to them, but connect to your, instructors, professors, or people working in companies, so that this will increase your score. And you will realize that when you apply for a job, you will hear more responses if you increase your score like this. So I don't want to give more inside information, but this is the simplest thing you can do. So another thing is that maybe you should give your kids a unique name, especially if you have a common last name, because in nowadays we kind of make fun of new names like Togaycan or Kaan Berke, but maybe it was a very nice idea, because if you have a very common name and last name, you will realize that when you want to travel abroad, when you pass the passport control, they generally take you to another room and just make sure if you're a nice person, because most probably there will be terrorists with the same name, having the same name. So they have to check if you are really not that person. So this might be a good idea. So if you want to give your kids a different strange name, I think it might be a good idea. So thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer.